alert weather day across the state as severe conditions roll in.
Yeah, aloha. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We have team coverage across the state. Our Billy V is standing by with your first alert forecast.
But first, let's begin with our Casey Lunn, who is live on the Big Island. Now, Casey, you got there yesterday. How have conditions evolved over the past 24 hours?
Yeah, Mark, I got to tell you, you started in Hilo yesterday. We went to speak with the mayor, get an idea of what they were doing, the county that is, to prepare. Really much different day than today. Of course, it was a little drizzly earlier on this morning, but we've seen those rains pick up. I'm here in Pahala town, the hospital here in Pahala at the entrance to town behind me. But I want to take you on a little walk, if I can, and show you what we're talking about when we talk about the amount of water that's coming down some of these streams. I'm going to be careful not to fall, of course, but I just wanted to show you guys this raging stream here going under Highway 11. And when you think about how much debris, things like logs can jam up, if they were to stop that bridge, it would cause some really big problems for Highway 11, but we've already seen some of those problems. And if we can, I want to show you just a little bit of the video that we've been able to gather here. We started our day in Pahala. Later on, actually began up in Volcano, then came to Pahala, and that's when things really picked up around the 7 o'clock hour. That's when, a little after that, we learned that the DOE had closed Pahala Elementary and Ka'u High School. That's because they were worried that the county was going to shut down Highway 11, and that is what happened. They shut it down in Kava Flats because of serious ponding on the roadway. Of course, they also shut down Na'alehu Elementary as well. A good decision, probably, because when we were there weren't a lot of kids coming to class. There were some teachers, but the Department of Education made that decision, and those schools remain closed. I know there's some others that we're going to report on later. The other thing that we want to talk about is just what Guy has been mentioning all morning long on Sunrise and for the last few days. With the wet weather we've seen here over the last week or so, on top of what we're getting this weekend, possibly till Monday, he says, really dangerous conditions, and the ground is already so saturated. We did get a video also earlier this morning. A small fern tree just fell right out of the ground, and that wasn't so dramatic, but it gives you an idea of just how wet the ground is out here. Now I want to talk a little bit about Highway 11. It was just about after sunrise, maybe around 9 o'clock or so. I don't want to pinpoint the exact time, but they made the decision to close that roadway. We were able to get out there and talk to some of the drivers about their experience. Some of them had been stuck there trying to get back to Na'alehu, or possibly had business in Kona. It was a frustrating morning for them, not knowing exactly when they'd be able to get around. Here's what some of them had to say earlier today.
Since 4 o'clock this morning. Went to Hilo, came back, and got stuck.
How is this kind of affecting you guys today? I mean, I had no idea how long you're going to be here, right?
No idea at all. It might be 24 hours, but we're first in line, and hopefully the road will open.
When you think about the fire station is in Pahala, and so if you need the engine on the other side, I know they're up in Wood Valley right now, but I'm supposed to be the volunteer fire captain in Na'alehu. I couldn't get to my truck if I got called. So it's really an inconvenience. And you think about even Ocean View, the closest hospital is to the Ka'u Hospital, which is really a good hospital in Pahala. They can't get there from here because Kawa is flooded. So it's quite a life-threatening thing that they needed to have addressed years ago.
Yeah, guys, and so as frustrating as that is for some of those drivers, and that was the gentleman you also heard from, a homeowner there, Ron, who lived right across that intersection where they closed Highway 11. He says they've been asking for years for the state to do something because it becomes a really serious situation, as he was talking about there when we interviewed him, specifically for folks that maybe need to get to a doctor's appointment, emergency services. Of course, you weren't able to really see the ponding on the road. The county had closed it before we were were able to get up there and see it. But you know, a foot of water, 2 feet of water, that can move a vehicle in some instances. So it was likely the right decision to make for the county. But again, it prompted the closure of those schools. Back here in Pahala, we know that it's been in the last hour or so, off and on, it'll completely downpour, and then right now I can almost lose my umbrella for a moment. But we know that this is not necessarily the intensity of the rain that we're worried about, but it's how long it's going to stick around, and it could really cause some really serious problems, especially for Pahala, Naleu, South Point, these parts of the Big Island. Guys?
Yeah, Casey, thank you so much for this report here. We've got a few questions for you. Now, what kind of preparations, I know you've been in touch with the county, what kind of preparations have they been taking over the last day or so?
Dylan, so when we got here yesterday, it was yesterday morning that Mayor Roth had declared that emergency proclamation, and I spoke to him. I was able to interview him yesterday. He says that just makes things a heck of a lot easier when they have to make those decisions about closing roads. Waipio Valley Access Road was one that they had already closed yesterday morning when they made that proclamation. He said he's not at all hesitant to make other closures if he needed to, and that proclamation allows him to get resources kind of ready, the fire department, EMS, and our other first responders as well as police to be ready for anything, and that's what we're seeing today. It could be really, really bad into tonight and through the weekend, quite frankly. We were also out at the county's base yard for the Highways Division. That's where a crew were filling sandbags. They were taking those places to make sure that they could shore up county facilities. They even took some to Waikea Elementary. That's a place that is definitely prone to flooding. So the county's ready. The mayor said he'd rather be ready for the worst than prepare for the worst and hope for the best, of course. But again, on the south side of the island here, we're really seeing some really severe conditions. The other thing I wanted to mention, I know Mark will go over this a little bit more in detail, but this morning they did open 2 shelters here, Nalehu and here in Pahala at the Ka'u District Gym. That opened right as we were wrapping up things for our sunrise broadcast. I'm going to head up there and see if anybody's taken advantage of that. I don't think folks are necessarily displaced, but of course, if you get stuck over on this side because of that road closure, you may need a place to go dry out so you don't burn your gas and wait until that road reopens. Guys?
Now, Casey, as we see with Maui County, the area of concern is always Kihei, just because it gets saturated so quickly. On the Big Island, what are the key areas of concern that officials are really keeping an eye on because the flooding can get out of control so quickly?
Yeah, definitely here, Pahala, Nalehu, and also, you know, if you spend any time in Puna, places like Pahoa, I know Billy's going to talk about this as well, and of course Hilo. Mayor Roth said that Hilo's definitely seen flooding before too. It's not unnatural for that to happen as well. And again, prefacing this with folks that are watching from the Big Island, they know how to handle wet weather. This is nothing new to them, but really the concern, as we've been talking about since we made this first alert weather decision, is the amount of time that this rain could stick around. So places like that, and then back over here where I am, Punalu'u, these places really could, especially considering, guys, the fact that Highway 11 is really the only way in and out for a lot of these communities. The alternative, if you wanted to get from Pahala to Kailua Kona, for example, is a very, very long drive.
Our Casey Lund out there, you're doing some great work. Stay dry, my friend. Thank you so much for this live report.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. All right.